It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, June 21st, and so happy for you joining us, and we are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness with Julius Miumo. Yes, we have the Bible word study and, of course, commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Wednesday, the middle of the week. It is hump day. Hope you guys are looking forward to tonight's Wednesday service. If you haven't yet, leave a like or a comment to build our community. Really happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. Let's get up and support each other each and every day. Now, excuse me. Yeah, it is the middle of the week. I'm super happy about tonight's Wednesday service. Just like this week's message said, it is really, really important for the preachers to be preaching with that fire and that shimjung together with the Holy Spirit. So we're inspired. So we will, that we can feel God and hear God through the message. So let's make sure we pray for our preachers. Make sure they pray well together with the Holy Spirit with a fire so that the message can come deeply into our hearts. So I'm really, really looking forward to that too. But, a lot of different things to think about, a lot of different things we can do to help our preachers all the time. So yeah, excited. I'm super excited and super happy for tonight's message. Today, we have Health is Happiness, but guess who's speaking? It's back to Julius. Yeah, Julius is going to do an episode. Super happy about this. We haven't heard from him. Well, we see him in the man cave, but we haven't heard from him in a while when it comes to Health is Happiness. He did an amazing segments for I forget how long he did it for, maybe 4 or 5 months or something. And then he opened it up to professionals and such. And now we have a very good mix of different doctors, physiotherapists, and stuff like that are chiming in and giving us the real info we need, coming from professional doctors and stuff like that too. So, but today it's going to be a very, very cool episode. So it's about motivation, right? And we'll get into it a little bit later when we start the Health is Happiness. But I'm excited about this one because something that I am looking forward to too. Coffee tip of the day. Yeah, let me get to another coffee tip. I talked to you guys about, when you look at a latte and how they do their latte art, right? And you look at the latte art oh, wow, they have good latte art, so they must be a skilled barista, okay? And there's another way, when you guys are looking at your latte art, there's something else you need to look for, which is the texture and smoothness of the steamed milk, the foam. Right? And there's something that all baristas are one huge sign of how good a barista is micro bubbles, right? So when you see, right when you get your latte or you see your latte art, the one thing you know that this person's skilled is when you don't see any large bubbles. They're called micro bubbles because they're so small that everything looks silky smooth. That's what it looks like, right? It's so small. When you look at that top cover, it's wow, it looks so creamy and smooth. You can't see the bubbles, right? And that's one of the ways you know that this person is skilled. Not only with the latte art, but how they steam the milk. So just know that a nice latte with good milk foam, it's going to have good milk foam. But one thing you have to keep in mind is if you let the latte just sit there for a minute or two, bubbles are going to start coming up. It's just natural. It's a normal thing. So no matter how good the barista is, they cannot stop the bubbles from forming after time. So you'll notice even when I take my pictures, sometimes sometimes you get your latte, you sit down and you just get into work for a little bit. And then 2-3 minutes later, I go to my latte and then it's all big bubbles and stuff like that. It doesn't look as nice as it did at the very beginning. So just know that look at the latte, the milk foam on top, right when you get it, and that's when you're gonna see, oh, is there a smooth, silky texture, or do you see the bubbles in it, right? So yeah, you know what I'm saying? When you go to a really good barista, you're like, wow, that looks awesome kind of thing, right? So yeah, it's good. Well, so I told you that I was feeling really tired and lazy yesterday, but I think I have a reason for this. Okay, so just a few days ago, like not too long, it's been less than a week. I got this new shampoo. Okay, and you might be thinking, oh my gosh, is this a new excuse? And no, because what I found out is there's a chemical in, like, this is a very kind of expensive shampoo, but it's got a chemical in it, and that chemical actually lowers testosterone. As crazy as that sounds, right? And I'm already at the age, because it's freaking me out, because I'm already at the age where my testosterone is going down anyways. Like year by year, it's going down like 1% at a time, whatever it is, right? So I was like, what? And then I started looking into, like, I looked up the internet on this chemical, and they're like, yeah, just be aware there's side effects. And the side effects is, obviously there's lower testosterone. Another side effect is you get like dry, itchy skin, possibly, not everyone, right? But then I was like going, dude, my face is so dry. It was dry. I was like, yeah, I don't know why. Like, remember I told you last week I had like this pimple on my nose? Like, I was like going, and there's like another 2 or 3 that formed on my nose. Like, what the heck is going on? And then I realized, after looking at the side effects and the contents of this shampoo, that it was like, oh, this is all coming from the side effects of this chemical. And I was like, dang, this. And then I started thinking back about it, because I was like going, hey, wait, when did I start getting this? It was all last week when I started this shampoo. It's like, oh, so this is the reason. So, for me, I'm right after this, I'm going to go over and get a newer shampoo. Not a new, like another shampoo, the one I'm used to using. I'm trying this new one here, but I was just like, wow, okay, so this is, it just shows. Sometimes when things happen, you got to look at the things that have changed, right? What have you changed in your life? What habits have you changed? What are your eating habits that have changed, whatever it is? Like, for me, I'm eating super healthy. I drink tons of water every day, even though sparkling water. I drink tons of water every day. Like, I go through, like, how many cans of bubbly do I go through? I go through maybe around 6 to 7 cans, right? And that's like 2 liters of sparkling water. But I go through so much water. I eat vegetables and fruits and all these other different things. And I'm wondering, like, why am I breaking out on why am I so dry? And then I just realized it was because of this new shampoo I was using. And I think it's something that we tend to do in our lives. I think this is how people get really successful, and so how other people really fail. Because, when you, like, say, let's just pretend you become successful. Like this, like, I'll take a look at this, like, YouTube channels too, right? When I talk to people who are really good into YouTube, they're like, oh, like, how would you know? Like, well, you have to try it out, try a bunch of different videos, and you'll see the videos that work, and you have to do more of those videos, right? But a lot of times people will just do YouTube channels, and they'll just do tons of videos. They'll keep doing video after video after video, and then they're like, well, why isn't it growing? Oh, but why did this, oh, it was growing so good, like, 3 weeks ago. But then you're supposed to look at, what topics did I use? So you're seeing the things that people want to hear, right? And in the same way too, I was like going, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. A lot of times the people who are successful are able to identify what they did, what they changed to make them successful in that area. And then on the flip side, when you see people who fail, it's kind of like, a lot of times, like this, I do this a lot of times too, is when something bad happens, we just think to ourselves, things happen, that's life. And you kind of just move on, and you keep failing and failing. You just think that's part of life, right? And a lot of times we just have to look at and say, wait, why is this? Why am I getting so dry? Why is my skin so dry? Why am I getting a pimple on my, what is going on, kind of thing, right? And you kind of got to look into what has changed. What you have to identify, what are the things that you changed? What are the things that you did wrong, right? And I think we have to kind of get ourselves out of that zone of, oh, well, things happen. That's my life. My life is a failure, or, I was never really good at this anyways. But the reality is, there's always something that we don't see or understand that allows us to succeed or makes us fail, right? And I think it's the same thing that we have to do to look at our faith also, right? Like, what is causing your faith to fail or succeed? Like, what are you doing differently than before? Is there something that changed in your life, right? Or look at other people who are successful in faith. What did they do? What do they do differently than you? How did they get to that point? What questions are you going to ask? And I think it's all about us identifying and seeing the differences in our life. When you look at the result, like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. I'm drinking tons of water. I'm having veggies and fruits, all these other different things. What is going on? And eventually you get to the point like, oh, this shampoo has this. Oh, and I thought to myself too, is like, yeah, I'm tired, but it's because this thing is dropping my testosterone. It's supposed to drop your testosterone by 1%. And I was like, yikes. So I think one of the biggest problems that we have sometimes is when we don't think about what we're doing and we just think that life is happening, or, oh, this has been my life all along. And a lot of times we're able to change it. We're able to make differences in our life too. So that was kind of a realization I had from this experience with, like, what is going on kind of thing, right? But yes, I just found out about that last night. It's noon over here, Tuesday noon. And of course, this is going to drop in about 2.5 hours. But yeah, right after this, I'm going to go get the other shampoo I was using that I was fine with. So, and plus the other one I was using before has a nice peppermint smell, which is way better. But either way, yeah. So that was quite interesting for me. It's just like, I was just so confused for a bit. Like, what is going on? I'm not doing anything different kind of thing, but it was the shampoo either way. So yeah, that's kind of like this big revelation that I had, this epiphany when I was like, wait, no wonder all these things are happening. So I think after a week on going back to my regular shampoo, I should be fine. I should be back to normal either way. So I do have an update. I didn't know this. I actually thought this was next month, but there's actually 2 trials this month for Sunstream, and Sunstream's trial was yesterday. It was on the 20th, right? So it was on the 20th, and let me go into just a quick update on Sunstream's trial. And I believe tomorrow is going to be like the trial for the other 8 women, right? It's 8 women, I think, and 8 or 6, right? With KJS and like Kyla and stuff like that too. So I'll report on that tomorrow. But today or yesterday, on the 20th, the 12th Criminal Division of the Daejeon District Court held the 10th trial, which means this trial's already gone for 9 months, double of what we thought it was going to be before. And what happened in this one was there's going to be some witness examinations going on. And just to let you know that it's private, so people don't get to see, like the newspapers, reporters will not get to see the private hearings, right? But what was in the open was witness examinations. Before they were started, Sunstream's lawyer requested the court to play the transcript related to the incident, right? Because these witnesses are now going to talk about the incident, right? And the reason why they want the court to play the transcript is because the transcript contains like the entire process from the time the victim met the accused to the time they departed, right? So basically they want to make sure everything matches, and it's going to help determine the credibility of the witnesses, right? The judge did reject the request, and he said that, it's not in the trial plan and there was no need to play the transcript. But the judge did say that, if it does come up that we need to check something, we'll definitely get into that. So we'll relook into this again. So it sounds like a fair thing anyways, right? So the rest of the trial, the witness investigations were all conducted in private, and witnesses are being questioned. We don't know who. I'm not sure which ones were being questioned, and others that were additionally accused people were being. I believe there were witnesses being seen too, and it looks like there's a possibility that all the witnesses related to both Hong Kong and Australian foreign accusers have been completed. So if that's the case, then we should be looking into a verdict pretty soon, right? So so when the witness interrogation is completed, it's expected that the prosecution's request process will proceed in a future trial. So we'll see what happens, right? We're going to see what happens. We don't know because it was done in private. So we just know that, look, it says 8 people, including KJS, basically they say the second in command of Providence, and the Civil Affairs Bureau Chief, who were involved in or assisted in the crime process of Sunseam are also being tried at the Daejeon District Court, and I believe that's going to be today, so I'll report on it tomorrow. Okay, so that's kind of what's going on, and we get an idea of the things that we need to pray for. And it's, this trial is coming closer to an end, so let's really pray that justice is served, and that whatever needs to be done will be done. And I hope that we'll continuously even repent for this entire situation too, of all the different things that have happened. Repent for those that are accusing, right? And, because if anything, we are the ones that have to do things the right way. No matter how unjust, no matter how unfair it may seem, we always have to do things the right way in love. Okay? So yeah, that is, I believe that's all the information we have from that trial. I haven't heard anything else from it, but I'm very grateful and thankful that this is moving along, and hopefully this will end soon so that we can go into the appeals. Like I said, the appeals court's going to happen no matter what. Whether we win or lose, it's going to appeals. Think about the other side. With Hong Kong and Australia, the two accusers, if they lose, they're going to do an appeal too. So regardless of what happens, there's going to be an appeal, regardless, right? Whether we win or lose. And then, of course, after that, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And that's kind of where we see that, that's basically the end game. That's where everything comes out. We're like, oh, okay, so this is what, this is going to be what Korea does. Either way. I'm still waiting for that, the audio file, right? Like what's going to happen with whether they accept or not accept the audio file. That's the one I'm wondering. We just haven't heard anything from it. I haven't heard anything from it either. But I hope that that comes down too, because I think that's very, very important for all of us also. Either way. Okay. So yeah, what does that mean? All right. So let's get into, what should we get into now? Oh, we got to get into our first break for the day. All right. So let's get into the first break. Okay, so let's get into our word study for today. And every single Wednesday, we do have the Bible word study. So we're going to go into either the books, history, origin, backgrounds, or certain types of information that we may not know very well, but that will help us out with this week's message also. So this week's message comes from Matthew chapter 25. And this is all about the 10 virgins. And we know this story very, very well. And what I'm going to go over here is how marriage happened back then and how different it is from today. And I do believe this is going to help us to understand the process of marriage back then also. That will make us like, oh, okay, so this is how they did it, right? So way back in the time of Jesus, like, we're sitting there like going, what does it mean, the 10 virgins, and they're waiting with their lamps? Like, what? People might have a hard time understanding, like, I don't get why this is happening this way. So let's get into what marriage was like back then. So in the beginning, there is a call to marriage and engagement, right? So marriage took place back at Jesus' time at a very young age for the ancient Jews, right? So most rabbis proposed age. The proposed age to get married was around 18, was appropriate for men, and sometimes a little bit younger, depending if there was war or not. And young women were married almost as soon as they were physically ready, which means around 13 or 14. Right? So remember, we're talking like 2,000 years ago and before. So the men were around 18 or younger, and the women were 13 or 14. So these are all people that are in high school or junior high. Okay? And of course, in most cases, marriages were arranged by their parents. So there were some exceptions, and arranged marriages were seldom forced on young people who had absolutely no interest in each other. But the view in the ancient world, and even in many places today, was that marriage was more about survival than romantic feelings. Right? So you see that there's a big difference about today and back then. It's about survival more than romantic feelings. And further, it was not merely the individuals who married, it was basically families coming together in mutual support. So beauty and romance, while, still considered pleasant things, they were known to be passing, and beauty comes and goes, romance comes and goes, but life and survival had to be based on sturdier foundations than just I have a feeling for you, which it might be that might actually even be better for today, to be honest, the way the divorce rate is. So once the future bride has been chosen, right? So the young man has a bride chosen for him. And then there's what you call a 1-year period of betrothal. So 1 year. So now that they're engaged, it's going to be 1 year period before they get married. So during this time, the couple live apart. They lived apart from each other, right? And during this time, there's like negotiations happening between the families, especially regarding the dowry. Like, what are you going to pay for my daughter? You're going to give me cows? You're going to give me money? Whatever it is. And the groom or his basically family paid the dowry to the father of the bride in recognition of the loss incurred by the bride's family as a result of her departure as a working member of the household. Interesting, right? It's kind of interesting how this dowry works, because it's the son, the families of the son that gain a daughter, and it's the parents of the daughter that lose a daughter. That's what they kind of say, right? And it's also understood that some money should be set aside for the woman in the event that her husband died prematurely, right? So there's a lot of things that are taken into account here. But when you listen to this, it's kind of like, for us, we're like going, what? There's no love? What? And it's interesting that in a Western society, it kind of, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's like, what, you're losing a worker? How can you call this woman a worker? But this is kind of what the reality was back then. Now, what was a marriage ceremony after the year? So after the period of betrothal, which is the entire year, was finished, all the agreements had been reached, the wedding can take place. Now, one thing you need to know during the time of the betrothal, right? For that 1 year, no one knows when the year ends. It's not like an exact 365 days. No one knows. And during that time also, they're building an extra part of their house so that the son and the new wife can live in that part of the father's home, right? So there's a bunch of things being prepared. On the other side, what the interesting point is at nighttime, What the bride does, they have a lamp that is always lit all the time, right? Because they have no idea when the husband will come to take the bride away. And she won't know. Only the father knows. Not even the son will know. When it's time, the father will say it's time to get the girl. Then they go, at night and they see the lamp on, and then they'll take the girl, right? So it's something where it's not like when we have a wedding ceremony, we're going to be like, all right, everyone, it's going to be July 27th, and we're going to be like this, we're going to be like this. I hope you guys enjoy it, right? And then everyone prepares for July 27th. Back in those days, there's no time. There's no set time. It's just usually a year. After all that's done, finally the father will say, get her tonight, right? And part of the woman's duty is to have that lamp constantly lit for that entire time until she is taken by her husband, right? And then after that period of betrothal, and all the agreements are reached, the dowry, everything else, the wedding can take place. So weddings typically extended over a period of 5 to 7 days. That's a crazy wedding, right? Imagine how expensive that would be today. And usually autumn was the best time for marriage because the harvest was in, the vintage over, minds were free, hearts were at rest, and it was a season when the evenings were cool and it was comfortable to sit up late at night. And usually the entire village gathered for the wedding, right? So at the beginning of the wedding celebration, in the evening, the bridegroom, accompanied by his friends, went to fetch his betrothed from her father's house, right? He would wear particularly splendid clothing and sometimes even a crown, and a procession was formed under the direction of one of the bridegroom's friends, who acted as the master of ceremonies, the MC, and remained by his side throughout the rejoicing. Now, the beautifully dressed bride was carried in a litter and in procession. So along the way, people sang traditional wedding songs largely drawn from the book in the Bible, Song of Songs, right? And when the procession reached the bridegroom's house, his parents bestowed a traditional blessing drawn from scripture and other sources. And then after the prayers, the evening was passed in games and dancing, and the bridegroom took part in the festivities. Now the bride, however, withdrew with her bridesmaids and friends to another room. So the next day was going to be the wedding feast. And once again, there was general rejoicing, kind of like a holiday in the village. And towards the end of the day, there was a meal at which the men and women were served separately. And this was a time for the giving of presents. So the bride, dressed in white, was surrounded by her bridesmaids, usually about 10. She sat under a canopy while traditional songs and blessings were sung and recited. And during this time, in the evening, the groom arrived. And while the exact ritual words are not really known, there seems to have been some dialogue between bride and groom, and that's also recorded in Song of Songs, right? Now the couple is together. So all the other men and women also come together, and it would seem that the synagogue or religious leaders imparted blessings to the couple who were together under the canopy, and the words of these blessings and rituals are not definitively known, and they probably vary. And after this comes the evening feast. This sounds kind of crazy, guys, but I wouldn't mind doing this. Like, imagine, how expensive that would be. So later the first evening, the couple would vanish to consummate the marriage, and they did not go on a honeymoon, but rather remained for the rest of the celebration, which often went on for several more days, sharing in the songs, dancing, and general merriment, right? So that it's quite interesting how the wedding is done there. But it kind of starts to make a little bit more sense when we're looking at the virgins with their lamps and such. And it's during that time of the betrothal when you have 1 year of preparation, right? So the bride is preparing, the bridegroom is preparing a house, right? The parents are negotiating the dowry. And one of the things that the bride has to do is keep the light on, keep that lamp going, right, until she is taken away. And like I said before, she has no idea when she will be taken away, right? A procession comes up at night, and they'll take her, they'll get blessed, and then, the wedding festivities begin at that time. So when we look at this, it's very, very interesting. There's like entire procession of like people in a procession coming down to get the bride. And it's this really wonderful, wonderful time. But I find it very interesting, just the differences of what it was like back then compared to now. Like back then, you don't have as many conveniences. Back then, you don't have as many like it's so different, the culture. And sometimes I think it might be better off that way, like it was in the past, because today, because it's based so much on feelings, that once you lose the feeling, you kind of just get divorced, which is kind of weird, don't you guys think? I find it so, like, if it's solely based on feelings and what the romance between two people, like, you wonder why it doesn't work out very well. Like, even for me, you guys ever, when you think about arranged marriage, you think like, oh my gosh, I would never do that. I would never do that. However, the way we're doing it now is not better. It's actually worse. If you think about it right now, the way we choose our spouses is worse than what it was back then. And if you think about it, if you're not marrying between two people, but back then you're marrying between families, right? I think then the parents have much more interest of what kind of wife should go to their son, and they'll know their son better, right? Like they'll see what the son's character is like, and a lot of times people are not self-aware of what character that they have, and when they look at that, like, oh my gosh, what kind of wife does this person need? What kind of character? And a lot of times, because the parents are not emotionally invested as the actual son. Like the son's gonna be like, oh no, I want someone prettier. I want someone this. I want someone that. When you think about that, it's like, yeah, it's kind of, it would be, sometimes you think that it would be a lot better. And I think in Providence too, what we're looking for is not I'm going to make all this decision by myself. The one thing that is so much better, when you listen to Love and Life, that came out yesterday afternoon too, is you want to do things with God in mind, and you want to be in that spiritual level where you can receive the inspiration of the Holy Spirit absolutely. And once you get that, you're like, oh, this is it. This is what God has absolutely wanted. You know what I mean? And like, even when I talk to some other BFs and when they tell me what they went through, you get nervous and anxious. But when it comes to actually going through it and you meet the person you're supposed to be with, they're like, you can't deny it. It's there kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, that feels like such a better way of doing it than just kind of going out and, well, I think this person. Oh, but this, the feeling and romance becomes too big of a thing. I'm not saying it's zero, but I think it becomes too big of a thing. But quite interesting how the Jews did their rituals and how they did their weddings in the past and the reasons they did it too. And I do think, I'm not saying we got to go back 2,000 years, but I really, really like how Providence does it. Like Providence is centered on God, and that's what should matter more than all the other different things. Either way. All right. So there it is, guys. That is this week's message coming from the 10 Virgins scriptures. Hope it gives you guys a better idea of what the scriptures are talking about and why it's done in that way. But I think one of the things that you could look at is even in the way that the Jewish, like, I got to add this last thing, is even in the way that the Jewish people do their weddings with the betrothal time of 1 year. And then on top of that, you have, they have that lamp that is lit every day. Like every night, it's got to be on. It's a sign that they're waiting and, that they're waiting for their bridegroom to come, right? And in essence, it is about their love. Like they are waiting for their love. They're waiting for the bridegroom. And the symbol of it is the lamp. And if you run out of oil, what happens is the light is out and the bridegroom will come and they won't see the light on, which means like, oh my gosh, this person wasn't thinking about me. This person really doesn't love me. So imagine that you're in preparation and the only thing that you need to do to prepare is that lamp, right? So that the bridegroom can come and see the lamp lit in your house and go and pick you up. But if it's not there, they're not going to pick you up, kind of thing, right? So when I looked at that, I was like, yeah, it makes a lot more sense too, that when we understand how they were having marriages and how they had their weddings, the scriptures make a lot more sense to us either way. All right. So there it is, guys. That is it. That is today's Bible word study. Hope you guys really enjoyed this. It's a little bit short today, isn't it? It feels a little bit shorter than usual, right? I'm not sure. Either way, let's get into our second break for the day.
about. Star player on my team, watch us come back. No limits on the team, sign the contract. Star player put the team on his whole back. Coming from the east to the west, yeah, he did that. So respect that.
What you saying
Through
now?
struggle, we trained hard, and now we standing on the gold road. It felt so low, but welcome home. Send the starting lineup, defenses get back, intensify, no more time to cry. Yeah, we ran the court and brought back the ring. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. We like,
But we was finished, but we at it again.
screaming like,
1,000 years, you know we surely will win. It's time to suit up, yeah, it's game time. He coming back like the 4-5. Eagle has landed, no bird's eye. In his suit tie, he's so fly. It's hip off, now the dreams are alive. Making sure your heart and actions are only aligned. Making sure you're only using just God's design. I perform like this to show you I'm shining bright. We know they watching, so we always gotta be cautious. Put the word on the map, that's the only option. Thinking we exhausted, now it's time we blow past. And we got that second win, so it's time to run it. We running through the defense, penetrating, I ain't never faking. Comeback season coming, yeah, we gonna show you who the greatest. Beat them by a last, I show them there is time for no debate. And at the end, you either mediocre or you be the greatest.
what's up? Hey, you think the world is gonna stop us? But wait, the MVP is with us, no bluff. I said,
So neat. I'm with my angels like a billion deep. I ball so hard that they can't compete. We only going up, just watch and see.
and that's all the lineup. Defenses get back, intensify, no more time to cry. Yeah, we ran the court and brought back the ring. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. We like,
Thought we was finished, but we at it again.
screaming like,
1,000 years, you know we surely will win.
some me on my mind, some me all the time. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. Some me on my mind, some me all the time. Some me on my mind, some me all the time.
So let's get into our final segment for today on this Wednesday podcast. And every single Wednesday we have Health is Happiness. And today, just delighted because Julius is doing an episode. And very, very important. I think this is something that, this is something definitely. I was talking to Julius about this before this also. I was like, I'm struggling with this too. And today's topic is about why am I unfocused and unmotivated? Like, even when we know we should be doing it, right? It's, I was talking to Julius, we're like going, man, it's the worst when you have things that you like and want to do, but can't be bothered for some reason to do it, right? And this is kind of one of those big discoveries that he's had and he wants to share with everyone here. And today's gonna, health-wise, medically, we're gonna talk about dopamine depletion, which is quite interesting. And I was like going, man, I feel like I have this dopamine depletion with Predon every single day. You know what I mean? So, very, very important one. I think all of us can benefit from this. Everyone, please welcome all the way over there from Australia. This is Julius Miyumo with Health is Happiness.
Hello everyone, Julius here and welcome to Health is Happiness. It's been a while, but I'm back again with a special episode. And the idea for this episode actually came to me quite suddenly after a very interesting experience I had about a month ago. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Today's topic is going to be dopamine depletion. Now, the reason why I decided to talk about this topic is because about a month ago, I was feeling really unfocused and unmotivated to do pretty much the things that I really, really wanted to do, which was really frustrating. So actually at that time, I was starting to prepare myself to be ready to apply for this particular job. And there's some skills that I needed to really prepare in order to do well in the interview and get the job. But for some strange reason, I had zero desire to do it, even though previously before, I really, really wanted this job. And I kind of still did. But I couldn't figure out why I couldn't focus to sit down to study what I actually really enjoyed, which was programming. And at that time, I was kind of anxious as well and bored at the same time, and I couldn't really figure out why. Also, I was playing soccer about once a week, which is my favorite sport. When I was younger, I used to play for 3 hours just by myself. That's how much I loved soccer. But when the game came up, I actually really didn't feel bothered at all to even want to play. And I was really confused. I was like, this is like my favorite sport. What's going on? On top of that, all the music on my playlist was kind of really boring. And I just kept scrolling past song after song on my Spotify playlist while I was at the gym. And I was even not feeling like going to the gym either. So I was really confused and trying to figure out what was going on with myself. And then I begin to notice that every time I was listening to a podcast or something, some YouTube in the background, when I took my headphones off and I was just in silence, for some reason I kind of began to feel anxious. And it was weird. Like I kind of felt the need to plug myself back in. Like I just needed to put the headphones on and listen to something. I couldn't just sit down in silence, and it was kind of weird. And so I was thinking, maybe I'm consuming too much media. And after that, then I decided, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to block all media. And I remember, actually, I don't use a lot of social media like Instagram, so I thought I was kind of fine. But I decided instead to block all media. That means no podcasts, no Spotify, no Instagram, no YouTube, which is the only thing I consumed mostly, and no TikTok and various things like that. And pretty much the only thing that I would use the internet for was for work. And all my devices, my phone, my laptop, I couldn't really access these social media platforms or media. Yeah. And the only thing that I used was SoundCloud, to be honest, at that time. And yeah, so I did this experiment, and it was really quite interesting. Early on, I kind of felt really a little bit anxious, but yeah, because when you stop using something and then you kind of feel like you need to use it. And it was kind of okay for the first couple of days, but then something really interesting happened in day 5. Now, I usually couldn't dream that much, but for some reason on day 5 onwards, from day 5 onwards to day 6, day 7, I had the most extremely lucid dreams. They were so real and so vivid. And I was thinking, hang on, what's going on? I literally had more vivid dreams in the last 3 days than I did in the past 2 months. From day 8, I started getting really emotional for some reason. And I had these strange headaches when I woke up. I was really going through some really intense, not really intense, but kind of weird withdrawal symptoms. Every now and then I kind of get sad for no reason, and my mind kind of felt a little bit tight. Once day 14 came around, things started to become a little bit better, and I started to notice something quite interesting. This same music that I listened to a couple of weeks ago, for some reason, felt really, really good once I listened to it again. And I was listening to this particular song, and I was listening to it again and again and again on replay. And just 2 weeks before, I couldn't even stand 10 seconds of this song. And it was quite weird. Music was really, really enjoyable again. And before then, previously, I kind of had feeling I was just scrolling through my playlist, song after song. There was nothing really satisfying, nothing really motivating me when I was in the gym. On top of that, going to the gym in and of itself began to be much, much easier. Like before, I would still go, but I would kind of begrudgingly do my workout. I didn't really feel like it. I didn't enjoy it for some reason. But then now, I was pumped to go to the gym, even before putting on the headphones and the music, which was kind of interesting. But the best part was that finally, I was able to start focusing on my studies once again. And this was I could now prepare for the job application that I wanted to do a couple months later. And I could easily sit down and read through the book that I needed to read through and get through a whole a whole chapter, which is about 10 pages, much not easier, but much more focused without getting up. Previously, before, I couldn't even read a page without me getting up to try and find some food to eat, or just feeling anxious, like I can't really absorb what I'm reading. But all of a sudden, I could get through 10 pages of really difficult, complex mathematics that I needed to study and learn how to program. And I realized that it was because of the power of cutting off all this media. Now, after this discovery, this was day 21 at this point, and roughly day 21, then I began doing some research about this once again, and I came across some knowledge that I'd actually learned ages ago, but I completely forgot, and it was about dopamine depletion. Now, some of you might know Dr. Huberman, and you might know him from the Huberman podcast, and he runs a science-based health podcast that's extremely thoroughly researched in many areas of health and science, which I thoroughly recommend. And he did one of these podcasts on dopamine, and this really reminded me something that I learned ages ago, but I clearly forgot to my own detriment. And it was the idea behind craving and motivation and its relationship with dopamine. So just to break it down and summarize it, in an experiment, this was an experiment Dr. Huberman was talking about. They actually depleted a rat of dopamine, and they had a rat who had normal dopamine levels, and they found that the rat that didn't have dopamine, they actually still enjoyed doing the activity that they did, which was eating cheese. And from this study, they were able to conclude that actually dopamine was not responsible for pleasure. But what they noticed was when they moved the food just a little bit away, just about an inch away from the rat that had no dopamine, they couldn't be bothered actually getting up to eat the food. So what they were able to realize was that dopamine was rather more responsible for motivation than for pleasure. This is really an important distinction, I think, that needs to be clearly made, because there's a big conception that dopamine is associated with pleasure, but actually it's associated with the pursuit rather than the reward itself. In other words, more dopamine is actually released in pursuit of whatever the reward is than the actual reward itself. So, why does this matter? Well, let me explain. If you've ever been scrolling through social media and you're wondering why am I still doing this? Why am I still scrolling through this even though my eyes are burning and clearly this doesn't feel good at all? Well, it's because of dopamine. You may have found that if you ended up stopping to scroll the social media, then you kind of felt really anxious. And after you do a few seconds of scrolling through social media, it kind of makes you feel sedated. Now, the reason for this is because over time, as you engage in this hyper dopamine inducing activity, it raises the threshold of your brain for the dopamine required to cause you to pursue something that you don't have, while at the same time depleting the amount of dopamine. Now, what's quite insidious, you might say, about this is because of the social media, the junk food, the constant text messages that are coming through, these hyper-stimulating dopamine activities, which are also require low effort, result in you not having the amount of dopamine required to drive you to pursue the other activities that you care about and require more effort. So the problem is pleasure experienced without prior requirement for pursuit is terrible for us. What this means is that those who are able to control their relationship and self-regulate their proximity to excess dopamine stimulating activities will be the ones who are successful at their pursuits, especially in this modern world where we constantly have easy access to hyper-stimulating dopamine activities. What's also quite interesting is that dopamine works in reverse with pain. In other words, pain evokes the release of dopamine after the pain is over. For example, if you take a really cold ice bath or do a really strenuous, painful exercise, that the more friction that you experience, the greater the dopamine reward when that activity is over. And that is where the runner's high comes from. On top of this, your brain develops more receptors, which allows you to respond more easily to dopamine, which makes you much more able to be driven to pursue your future goals. So, what can we do about this? Now, to me, the easiest thing is elimination. Of course, we cannot completely cut ourselves from social media since we need to keep in contact with people. So what I choose to do is cut out all the unnecessary ones that really add no value. That's up to you to decide. But for the ones that I do need to use, I actually I have a screen time management application that only allows me to use certain applications for maximum 15 minutes. And doing this now allows me to control my relationship with these activities to prevent me from being inhibited from pursuing my other goals. So I hope you guys experiment with this for yourselves and see how you feel after even 7 days or 10 days. I'm sure you'll feel the difference. Well, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you all for listening to Health is Happiness, and see you next time.
And what an awesome episode. Yes, very, very needed right now. Getting focused, getting motivated once again. And it has to do with the dopamine depletion that we have. And I hope that all of us, the only thing left now is, what are we going to do about it? We got to put these words into action so that we can get motivated and refocused again. All right? So thank you so much, Julius, for a wonderful episode of Health is Happiness. I'm sure a lot of people have learned from it. Guys, go ahead, leave a comment below. He'd love to hear what's going on in your heart and your mind too. Okay? So, that is the end of today's Wednesday podcast. I hope you guys have an amazing and awesome day. Just have the best service tonight. Support your leaders. Pray for them. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when